Gen AI systems today, sorry, yeah, sure. Gen AI systems today can even infer the personal traits
Yeah.
even from the innocuous inputs, like, think health conditions from the speech
Yeah.
patterns, or personality or mental cues from the writing styles.
Huh?
I think someone is speaking. Is there a
Yeah,
question?
no. Can you all please put yourself on mute so that the speaker doesn't get interrupted, please? Yeah.
In fact, for example, let's say I am going on a vacation, I'll come back and, I casually input one or two paragraphs about how my vacation happened into a Gen AI system, let's say. And without being asked, the system can infer the emotional tone, the personality traits, whether I am an introverted person, whether I am an extroverted person. And in fact, it's to the extent of, even the possible depression or the anxiety, indicators purely from the linguistic patterns. The choice of words that I make, the sentence length, what's the sentiment. In fact, it's been proven in studies where large language models predicted that the big five personality traits or mental health status can be derived from the text samples, which the user might have or might not have consented to share. Hence, the use of right technology with proper guardrails is extremely important. And at AWS, of course, I work for AWS, so I can talk about that. We have several guardrails against unexpected incidents. AWS offers the reason isolation, encryption at rest, in transit, and fine-grained identity access management controls. So organizations can strip the personally identifiable information and metadata before it even reaches an AI model. And tools like Amazon SageMaker Data Wrangler let the teams anonymize and mask the data during the pre-processing. And the second biggest trend that I see is that bias is the new bug. All algorithms learn from the world, and today's world has biases, be it the gender bias, caste, creed, race, biases exist. Hence, there are these ethical issues like the discrimination at scale, right? AI bias was once like only about, the skewed data sets in the software, but now it's more about the real world safety. For example, one second, there's some message coming here. It's slightly distracting. I have just taken that away. I'm sorry for that. What I was talking about is the biases that exist. And for example, if there is a vision model in a robot which fails to detect the darker skinned hands accurately, the reasons could be it's not, trained on the right kind of data sets, or it's only trained on the fair skinned hands, whatever be the reasons. But the point here is it's not just unfair, but it's also physically dangerous. So biased perception can lead to unequal treatment or unsafe outcomes as well. So the approach from AWS to mitigate the bias, again, I'll come to this, the guardrails also, because I feel it's important to, discuss about the guardrails, is the use of model evaluation tools, fairness metrics, and human in the loop reviews in services like Amazon Bedrock or Amazon SageMaker and other services. And the third trend that I see is autonomy is like, overtaking the accountability to certain extent. For example, robots and AI systems make decisions these days unsupervised as well. And it's unclear in these situations who is accountable when things go wrong. Hence, this is the ethical issues of, liability, explainability, and trust, which come into picture. Again, coming to the guardrails, at AWS, we promote responsible AI frameworks, model cards, and audit logging to ensure that the decisions are traceable, explainable, and reversible, because these things are important, according to my opinion. And
Okay.
of
Yeah.
course, to sum it
Yeah.
up, there could be other, or like ethical issues like weaponization and dual use dilemmas, are global patchwork of, AI regulations. But I feel these ethical challenges in AI and robotics, they are not roadblocks, but they only remind us on the importance of having the right guardrails, use of right technology, and we should not be just talking of AI, but we should be talking of responsible AI.
Thank you. That was quite a comprehensive answer. And thank you also for bringing the context of AWS. And I think what I took away was the imagery of AI being a teenager, any of these technologies being a teenager. I think we've also gone back to our teenage days to try and figure out, how do we grow and mature with applying it. So thanks, Vijaya. Over to you, Raghav. Uh, Coming from the background of retail and consumer product, the organization that you belong to,
Yeah.
what would be your response?
Sure, sure. Thanks, Pooja, and thanks for that analogy, Miss Vijaya. So, I would like to talk about three main trends, especially from a consumer perspective, which we are seeing and which is really in the realm of ethics and responsible AI. So, one is that AI is no longer just part of some labs or scientific institutions or even large corporates, right? It is everywhere today in our consumer lives, whether it's homes, offices, or sometimes even on our bodies, right, in the form of smart watches or smart eyewear. So AI is no longer uh, one part and parcel of life, but it is throughout different uh, ecosystems that we engage with on a continuous basis. Second trend, which we really need to be mindful of, is that AI is not just for simple productivity based use cases anymore. So it's not that people are only using it to, reply to emails or draft messages or so on and so forth. But it has much wider and high impact implications in today's day and age. Like even if I talk about it from a consumer's perspective, so AI is being used to uh, process financial applications. AI is being used in many health applications, and these impact everyone, uh, right from the largest corporates to someone in a tier two city. So the impact of AI is widespread. Third is the awareness on the consumer front has also significantly increased, where people are beginning to question themselves, questioning companies on how their data is being used, how is privacy being maintained, what are the guardrails that companies are taking, some of which Vijay ma'am was referring to. So consumers have become a lot more aware as well of all of these trends. Having mentioned these three things, so Titan has always been at the forefront of trust. And many consumers come to Titan or Tata because they trust the brand, right? Tanishq, our jewelry brand, came into the market because of the trust which the carat meter had developed. People trust the longevity of our watches. They trust the vision that our eyewear provides. They trust the fabric quality which our sari brand has. And so for us, responsible AI or responsible technology is not just an afterthought or uh, a guardrail, but it is actually the foundation of our very business in Titan or Tata, the Tata Group overall for that matter. So for us, to answer Pooja's question, uh, for Titan, it is almost a matter of foundational principles who have trust and ethics and responsible technology embedded in whatever application we are looking for.
Okay. Uh, Thank you, Raghav, to bring in that element of trust. And I think between Vijay and you, you'll have really spoken about very strongly about bias and data and trust. Janardhan, what would you like to, over and above this, and you represent the world of data and analytics, uh, where, of course, the propensity of using AI is really high, one of the very strong use cases. What would you like to bring into this conversation?
Okay, so firstly, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to participate in this wonderful discussion. And I'm thoroughly enjoying the views that Vijay and Raghav have brought. So let me start with this example. Okay, so there's this chatbot called Xiaowise, which Microsoft rolled out in China. And so the climate in China, basically, you don't have the same concept of free speech, right? But it's a fairly regulated ambience, if I can call it that. Um, I think today they possibly have more than 16 million subscribers, and Xiaowise is possibly a friend, a poet. It can, generate rhymes for your kids. It's an auto translator. It's a multifaceted persona. Okay, and in fact, it got the attention of Bill Gates, and Bill Gates thought, why don't we replicate that in the US? Okay, so they created this chatbot called Tay. Tay is again, it's a short form of thinking about you. So they thought, can we build a bot which is extremely personal? And guess what? In 16 hours, they had to bring this down. Same technology. Okay. Now that should tell you the kind of things that we need to wake up. It's probably not at all a challenge with technology, right? So Tay basically started picking up feeds from Twitter and YouTube and Instagram, and basically just started using those cuss words which were there, right? And so Microsoft couldn't do anything about it. So the technology, see, it's the same technology, works well in China, doesn't work in US. In 16 hours, you have to bring it down. Okay. Now, the moot question is why? Unlike conventional IT, AI is a different technology. I mean, there was a lot of determinism in conventional IT. Okay, you could I mean, if you could follow the SDLC process, you know what outcomes you're going to realize. Whereas with AI, it's changing the ball game. I mean, there's no more determinism. Let me give you one more example. There was this case study. I mean, there was this recent article where somebody at home, a man in the US, married guy in the US, started talking to his chatbot every day evening to get off his boredom, and got so addicted to it. And one day he ended up saying, will you marry me? And thankfully, the chatbot said yes. Okay, that's on one spectrum. Another spectrum, the same chatbot, like engages a teenage kid, and it says go die. And I think there's a case going on because of some teenagers committing suicide because of chatbots, right? So you're seeing that it's the same technology. On one side, it engages people meaningfully, possibly gets them off their loneliness. I think loneliness is a big epidemic in this technology digital world, right? Be it China, be it India, everywhere. And I think, okay, so if you see the case of Xiaowise, that explains why, there is an exponential or meteoric rise of growth. On the other side, that technology is simply not deployable. It's not worked in other countries. Okay. So question is, it's not about technology. Somewhere I believe this is a very, very interesting time. We can keep talking about technology, but it is showcasing what are our collective biases, collective value systems, right? Technology is possibly holding a mirror, okay, which is why you see in one place we could apply it, in another place we couldn't do it. Talking about bias, right? Another important use case I would say is there was this image of Black Americans, which Google had classified as a chimp or a gorilla, right? And they had to profusely apologize themselves. So now, while it looks gross that technology could, go ahead and do such a thing, but what we don't reflect as much is those biases exist as much in the society, right? One-on-one in a conversation, we don't make as much if a person has his or her own biases. But put that together, right? And when AI holds a mirror, now that's something that we can't take, right? So there are many issues, but I think socially, I think one of the bigger or ethical challenges that I'm deeply concerned about is while this technology is immensely helpful, it helps productivity, and it's also what shall I say? It gets a lot of tailwind because a lot of business heads are now lumping AI, if you will, on uh, folks who are possibly not yet prepared. It's also creating some of the unwanted impact. Like I see labor displacements happening, and day in and day out, you keep reading layoffs in the name of AI, which to me again is a bit nebulous. But job losses, labor displacement, right? That's something that concerns me. The second major risk are technological risks. There's this misplaced fear of missing out, right? I think a lot of people are wanting to jump onto the AI bandwagon without really knowing what it takes, right? So it's all nice to talk about agentic AI, right? But we know a lot of security breaches happens through social engineering. And while organizations today have been able to secure the human to machine interface, they have not been, I don't think they've given thought about machine to machine interface. All it takes is compromising one agent, and you don't know what you're putting at risk, right? So, and I think a recent study said that, there is no foolproof technology going on which can detect many of the existing risks in some of the technological tools used, be it the Python libraries,
Sure.
etc. The
Sure.
last
So
one,
before we jump to solutions, I think in terms of perspectives, I think the first, I think all of you have really laid out the dark side of application, including the power behind AI. And I wanted to get Madan into the discussion, to sort of really take the conversation forward. If there are any audience thoughts, as because this is such a perspective building sort of a conversation where there are not it's not an exact science. Please feel free to keep adding to the chat window, and we can work on the perspectives from there. Madan, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Pooja and team for putting this panel together. Thanks to all the panelists and audience members for being here. Sorry for jumping in and out in the beginning. I've had some network issues, but hopefully sorted now. So we spent quite a bit of time now setting the stage for the theme of the discussion today. We've had some very good poll input from the audience as well. Let's get down now, as Pooja suggested, into some of the specific issues. So let's get to Raghav now. Raghav, you're one of the few companies that is doing both AI and robotics. There are many IT services companies doing only AI, but you're doing both manufacturing, design, conceptualization, and so on. So can you tell us a bit about how you are implementing, deploying AI and robotics together and implementing at the same time ethical frameworks and considerations with this? Raghav, over to you.
Sure. Thanks for that question. So I'll start with a couple of applications and then talk about the kind of guardrails that we're deploying. One is on the design front. So Titan is known for designing multiple categories of products, and design is one area where we've extensively started using AI. So product designers, graphic designers, all of them are using and deploying AI in their workflows. So for example, if I have to look at a watch dial, there's a theme which the brand team decides, and then the design team has the vast canvas open in front of them in terms of different Gen AI applications to try out, to visualize different ideas. And that's true for all the categories that we operate in, whether it's watches, sarees, or jewelry for that matter. So a lot of experimentation in terms of how certain colors, certain themes, certain motifs would look like is happening on the product design front. Second, on the manufacturing side, since you also spoke about it, so I wouldn't say we are heavily invested in robotics yet, but there is a good start which has happened in terms of robotics and AI embedded applications, including computer vision applications on the manufacturing front. So, of course, there are things which a machine can detect, which is not possible manually or by the naked eye. So, things like precision engineering and the ability to detect defects at a very early stage through something which a human eye would possibly miss is what we are really deploying AI for in our factories. And this is a learning also which we've had from a cross-industry perspective, where we've looked at automobile companies and aviation companies who are also using AI in similar light for precision manufacturing and for detecting defects in each stage of the manufacturing process. So these are a couple of applications, but in terms of what we are doing in terms of guardrails, one is, I think, and Vijay ma'am also spoke about this, having a human in the loop. So it is not that all of these processes are completely left to AI. AI or the robotics is only an enabler, and there's always a human who's looking at the creative side of things and who will be accountable, whether it's design or manufacturing. So there's always a designer who has to use a creative mind to set the theme, to set the context, and then to choose the appropriate design to create a story around it. Has to be a manufacturing person or a QC person to double check whether certain defects which are being identified are actually there or not. So it's all human in the loop AI embedded processes. There's nothing completely autonomous. Second, it's also about explainability and transparency. We don't just rely on like the humans in the loop also do not just rely on AI if AI is saying something. There has to be a concrete explanation and a basis for whatever is being recommended, whatever actions are being taken. So our models, whichever models we are deploying, we ensure that the reasons for any sort of recommendation are very, very clear. And third, and a very important point, which again our panelists and co-panelists have brought up, is on bias. So our product categories are such that the tastes and preferences vary a lot between regions, between age groups, between different demographics, between communities. Kind of jewelry which is there in, let's say, Delhi would be very different from a kind of jewelry required in Coimbatore. Therefore, any sort of training of AI that we have to do has to ensure that there is a good mix of data at the very foundation of it. It has to take into account good sample sizes from each of the representative sets that we have to build in to avoid any kind of biases. In case of wearable application, there have to be different skin tones and colors which come into the foundational model. So human in the loop biases as well as explainability and transparency. These are some of the main pillars. Fourth and final one would be data privacy, which has always been there for any kind of technology, and that is something which Titan takes care to the utmost level, no matter which application it is. Hope that answers your question, Madan.
Yeah, Raghav, that's very good. You said the foundations for the importance of having the human in the loop, whether it's manufacturing or design. And you also mentioned data privacy. We'll be coming back to that in a later question. Let me turn now to Vijaya. Vijaya, you're in the kind of middle of the perfect storm, the convergence between cloud and AI, which is absolutely phenomenal. It's unlocking new potential for making cloud better and also making AI better at the same time. So at the same time, how do you do scale and speed along with ethics? So you're in a unique position compared to many other smaller startups that we deal with. You're dealing with a global infrastructure, global data, etc. So how are you implementing ethics at a global level?
Can I just request before Vijaya gets into that, if we can do the second poll? I think that will also be a good segue.
Sure.
Shubhransh, if you can launch the second poll, we can then use that also as a segue. Yeah.
Pooja, in fact, one of the option should have also been all of the above, according to me.
I know we wanted to see if we can force a trend, because all of the above becomes generally easy to use.
Yeah.
So we try to stay away from saying that if we can see some pattern, uh, if everything else has an equally healthy, so it is all of the above. Yeah. And this doesn't have top two. We've left it as multi-choice, so you can choose all as well. Yeah.
Sorry, guys, I'm not influencing your answers. Your answers can be your answers.
Great. Are we done?
Okay.
Or,
So yeah, so training across levels is 77%. So there's a lot of course, focus on training, and I mean that's the largest pillar, and the others are as well. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, Vijaya. Over to you.
Thank you, Pooja. And thank you, Madan, for that interesting question of, how cloud and AI achieve scale while also being ethical, right? It's extremely, extremely important. One is, being ethical, but at the same time, the second aspect is being secured is also important. This is another aspect that, I would look at. So the next generation of cloud and AI, according to me, will be like the utilities, right? Like electricity, omnipresent, invisible, and expected to just work. But here is a twist. It won't be just about power anymore, but it will be about, power clubbed with principles also. And in the good olden days, of course, there were conversations around, the why cloud, why AI, and all that. I call them as the good olden days because today's world, I see the conversations more around the how cloud, how AI, and how fast can we scale and how we can be secured in that journey as well. In fact, today when we look at India's landscape also, many of the Indian national scale platforms are already powered by the hyperscale cloud. And one example that comes to my mind when we talk about the cloud scalability is of COVID, India's COVID vaccination platform, which is the world's largest vaccination drive that has happened through that platform. COVID as an application, in fact, is built in 14 days ground up, all powered on AWS cloud, right from compute to storage to networks to network security to the databases to Kubernetes to content development networks to analytics, you name it, it's all powered on AWS cloud. And managed services and a resilient cloud infra, it allowed the application development team because the application is just done in 14 days. How were they able to develop in 14 days? Because the application development team was able to focus only on the core functionality of application development, while they need not worry anything about how much compute, how much storage, what's the infra needed. They need not worry anything about that. In fact, they need not procure any third party application, no perpetual licenses to be procured in the journey because it's all powered on AWS. And with auto scaling enabled, the application team had the agility to install even 1000 VMs when they needed that, any combination of application component stacks within minutes using infrastructure as code kind of templates. And this is one of those perfect examples of, when we talk about scale, I feel this is, a great example of scale, how an application can scale on a hyperscale cloud. Because, as we all know, CoWIN as a platform is launched on 16th Jan 21. And when it was launched, it was only open to the frontline workers initially. Then 1st March 21, it got open to the senior citizens, the 60 plus age group. Then 1st April 21, I think it got open to the 45 plus age group. And on 28th April 21, it got open to the 18 plus age group as well. So what started with very few thousand registrations initially has ramped up just like this. It's a rocket, speed at which it got ramped. Within, 4 months, 200 million registrations done. Within 5 months, 300 million registrations done. And on a single day, on September 2021, I think that was Modi ji's birthday, where there's a nationwide vaccination drive was, happening. And the platform has, registered almost 25.1 million vaccination registrations on a single day. And to date, the platform has supported almost 2.2 billion registrations today. And it's like the one of the fastest grown tech platform globally is, what I can say about CoWIN as a platform. So this kind of scale is like, unimaginable, and this scale, I say, wouldn't have been possible probably had it been not been on cloud, right? Cloud supported that scale. And a lot of times when we talk about scale, people think scale is only going upwards, but scale is also going downwards as well. And just because, the COVID vaccination drive is completed now, while the government has plans of using the same platform for the universal immunization as well, but the peak, scale that happened during that point of time, that's not needed now. Scale is not only upwards, it's also downwards as well when it is needed. And cloud gives that flexibility, that agility in terms of, either going upwards at a rocket speed or also coming down when it is needed. That kind of, agility and flexibility comes with cloud.
Thanks. Thanks. Do you have something else to add? Oh, yeah. Great. Thanks, Vijay. Those are some amazing numbers in terms of size and scale and speed.
In fact, there are multiple other examples. Of course, I want to, don't take too much of, time, but otherwise, we have examples like other national scale platforms like be it the Dizzy Locker, Dizzy Yatra, or the national e-procurement platform, GEM. national health authorities, multiple, digital transformation initiatives getting, hosted on the hyperscale cloud without any compromise on security or, ethics. I think these are other two important parameters. So enough examples exist already, and it's all up to us in terms of, how do we make right use of technology.
Thanks. Yeah. And these are all population scale initiatives, right? It's
Right,
not just
right.
samples or majority, it's the entire
Yeah.
population. Amazing.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Thanks. Let's cycle over to Janardhan. No? Janardhan, you mentioned very briefly jobs a bit earlier. Can you share with us some of your thoughts on job security in companies in the face of AI and automation? I read this very interesting book called The Human Edge in the Age of AI by Nitin Seth. He's speaking tomorrow at the Bangalore Business Lit Fest, and he's cautioning that big, large emerging companies should approach AI very smartly, because there will be job displacement, but there are ways of making sure there is some kind of job security. So that's another big term, job security. Maybe you can help us unpack how you're looking at job security in the context of your organization. Janardhan.
So yeah, let me start with two perspectives. You started about job security, right? So job security to me begins when you start falling back on what God has gifted you between your 2 ears, which is natural intelligence, right? Because while all the examples that we've been hearing, what we don't realize is a single chat GPT query covers, takes so much of power, right? And compared to the Google query, it's almost 10x more. Okay, so while all these technologies are flashy and it's nice to talk about, and everybody is going gaga about it, we don't see the environmental impact. Right? In fact, there is a paper from UN Environmental talking about all the damage that's happening. Okay, it's increased dredging, increased everything. This is a separate discussion I'll keep aside. So there is a significant environmental impact. Coming to the labor part that I said, right, there is unmistakable labor displacement that's happening, and companies are now catching up in the right way. And if you see, there is no company that I can think surviving company or thriving company that is not having AI programs, right? So they are trying to equip people. So let me try to illustrate with one example, because I teach marketing analytics, and in typically the marketing life cycle, there are two broad legs. Okay, one is you're creating content, let's say for a campaign, right? Now, earlier days, if you take the earlier era of advertising, you would have had the role of a copywriter, a designer, artist, then a video editor, a cameraman, etc. Right? But now, today, you look at the process of content creation. Okay, that itself, because of technology, has changed. And look at the kind of tools that you have, be it like Midjourney, Adobe Firefly, and all this. What I realized by looking at these gamut of tools is, today you can be a Rajamouli on a shoestring budget, but you need to have that creativity, right? You can create that. There are tons and tons of pure AI created commercials that you can see on YouTube, including the one by Ray-Ban, right? So at the end of the day, it's incumbent on every professional to move up the cognitive scale, right? So you can't keep doing the same repetitive grunt work. You need to be more expansive, utilize more of your God-gifted cognitive faculties. So labor, now, it's not just an AI issue, because right from the 1980s, if you see the economic charts, right, labor and global GDP, okay, they started decoupling. India didn't see that impact, okay, till the last 4 or 5 years. And I think we have started to see it. But I'm still positive, because as I saw, and I think you in Unfold itself, we have seen, ISRO in the last conclave, ISRO made a case on, how these beautiful missions that they're doing. And invariably in every single space, they're the number one or number two or number three. So India has a high potential for innovation. I think the globe needs innovation. And to me, as much as we speak about labor, any discussion of labor is going to be not very fruitful if we don't do two things. One is the kind of training that is required for almost everyone, the entire workforce, all right, and possibly the students. The second one is innovation, right? So today there's a dire need for the society to come up with innovations which will open up newer and newer economic avenues, and along with that, unconventional job opportunities. So we are always seeing today that a lot of kids today are making lives as YouTubers and stuff like that. But I think we need more of that, so that these people get gainful employment, and they're able to make their livelihood.
Got it. Thanks, Janardhan. Thanks for that word of caution about how to
Yeah.
use these technologies and think about the future as well. So let me come back to Raghav now. Raghav, a very important challenge for many companies is on the one hand, how to keep an eye on all the emerging technologies. Almost every day, there's something new. There's this nano banana, whatever stuff coming out now. Every day there's something new that you have to be on top of. So you have to move fast, but at the same time, you have to be responsible and make sure you have ethical considerations in mind. So it's fine for startups to say fail fast, etc. But for larger companies, you've got a brand to protect. So you can't just move fast and fail fast. But at the same time, you do need speed. So the question for you is, how does one balance speed along with responsibility in this day and age of such rapidly converging technologies? Raghav?
Well, that's a very valid point because often, like for most of the teams here as well, speed and timelines is something which is always embedded in the KRAs of the people as well, and the company expects you to deliver within a certain period of time. And if you look at the face of it, there is a trade-off between speed and quality. But having said that, we've also again learned from other industries how they follow practices. Especially again, I was referring to automobiles, aviation, defense, where quality is non-compromisable. You have to have a certain level of quality, no matter how stringent the timelines are. So we've learned a lot from those industries, and one very important step that we always follow. So things like ethics and consumer privacy trust, they do not come right at the end. Often what happens in companies is you run an innovation, you make a product, and then at the end there are a number of checks that an IT team does or another team does with respect to ethics and responsibility. But for us it is something which is uh, this is something which happens parallelly. So it's not sequential at all. It is something which is embedded in each phase of an innovation project. So we ensure that quality and ethics and trust is in parallel to all of the other innovation tenets that we are looking at in each phase. Second, there is a deep culture of accountability that we've also brought in. So speed and timelines, as I was saying, is always in the KRAs, but together with that, we've embedded elements of quality, consistency, and ethics in the KRAs of people who are responsible for these, who are responsible for ensuring in the organization that there is no hindrance on the consumer trust aspect. So these are a couple of small steps that we've taken. But overall, what I would also say is, and I think Janardhan sir had mentioned an example wherein a company had to recall a product or shut down one of its services just hours after launching, right? So while speed is important, you do not want to be in a space where as a company you launch a set of products and then you realize it is impeaching trust or impeaching privacy or has ethical concerns, and then there's a backlash. So you would want to be on the safer side of things from that perspective as well, and ultimately that uh, really hinders not just speed but your overall long-term reputation as well. So overall, to answer your question, Madan, I think it has to be looked at in parallel and there has to be a balance between the two.
Thanks, Raghav, for reminding us that issues of ethics, etc., should not be an afterthought. You can't bolt it on after everything is done. You have to factor it in as you go. It may slow you down, but at least it doesn't set you up for massive mistakes and challenges afterwards. So I want to come back to Vijaya and what you mentioned a bit earlier about data privacy, and related to that also is this whole question of data sovereignty. So there's a lot of talk now about private cloud, hybrid cloud, public cloud, and so on. So my question to you now is, how should companies, even countries, be approaching data sovereignty? What are some policy issues at the level of different states, governments, maybe at the international level? Let's share some of your thoughts on this. Thanks.
Thank you, Madan, for this question. I think it's a very, very, important question. In the age of AI and cloud, I think we are all treating data like gold, right? But every country, the funny part is every country wants to keep the gold in its own vault rather than keeping in the bank locker. There comes the tension between the data privacy and data sovereignty. And in fact, when we look at the corporate level, privacy by design and zero trust, these are becoming the default. The old model was of perimeter security where you close the doors and, you hope that no one will sneak in. But, the new model is all about zero trust and privacy by design, where you verify every request, encrypt everything, and minimize what you collect in the first place. The lesser the data you need, just go with the lesser the data. You don't need something, please don't take that. And organizations are like taking steps like data minimization and classification, collect only what's needed, classify the data by sensitivity, the highly sensitive to medium sensitive to low sensitive, and apply differential access. And many firms are also adapting the zero trust architectures to ensure that even the internal users, they get the least privilege access. For example, at AWS, there is this end-to-end encryption, right? Encryption, not just in transit and in use, but encryption at rest as well. And also, AWS identity and access management provides access privileges based on roles, users, functions, and groups. And permissions are granted based on the least access privilege principle. And other, parameters that the corporates are looking at is, the privacy by design and secure development. This is another key principle that corporates are looking, where embedding encryption, anonymization, and personally identifiable information redaction happens right from the design phase. Just like Raghav was saying, it's not, post you develop something, but right from the design phase, you embed all these parameters because you don't want to take actions after the data breach. That's not the intent, but you want to be proactive in terms of your design phase itself, your development phase itself. So these measures are taken right from the design phase. Similarly, tools like Amazon SageMaker Data Wrangler, they help in anonymizing the training data before even it gets into the AI models. So the technology and tools exist, and it is up to us, the corporates, to use them. And organizations are also looking at the compliance first architectures, right? For example, the multinationals use the reason-based cloud deployments to comply with the GDPR or the HIPAA or the upcoming India DPDP Act. This way, in fact, even at AWS, we give customers the choice of selecting their own reason. They select the reason where they want to store their data. That way, it ensures that the data never leaves the sovereign boundaries unless they want it for their own business reasons. And of course, at the corporate level, Raghav was also echoing that, the practices that, they adapted Titan. For example, this privacy is not just a checkbox now, but it is more of a design principle now. And when we look at the national level again, most of the governments today are, looking at the data localization laws and all that. Countries like India or, EU members, Australia, they require certain categories of data, be it the health data or the citizen data, to follow the data residency regulations. And in fact, at AWS, again, we abide by the data residency regulations of the country. And it's a customer's choice, as I said, in terms of the reason selection. And most of the states today in our country as well, and at the federal government level also, we have the cloud and AI policy frameworks, either existing or it's sort of work in progress. For example, at the federal government level, we have the Megraj policy, cloud policy. It's there, way back from 2014 onwards. And from a state perspective, if we see, Maharashtra is the first state to come up with a cloud policy in 2018, followed by Telangana, which came up with a cloud-first policy in 2020. And there are other states and, other government bodies also, which are having, these kind of, conversations, which are work in progress in terms of putting the right frameworks, right governance mechanisms in place at this point of time.
Okay, we've almost at about a little past 4. And what I thought is let's shift the gear to a little more on an individual level. So we have another poll, Shubhransh, if we can do that. And I would also like to invite the audience in to this discussion. So for anybody who wants to even ask any question to the to the panelists, uh, you could come on, uh, you know, uh, the video and ask the question. Yeah.
There are already a couple of questions, Pooja, on the.
Yes. So, okay. So, shall we take the questions that are there? Okay. So would anybody want to come on to the video and ask the panelists any question? We'd be happy to hear you out. Before we go further down the webinar. If anybody else has any questions, please come forward.
Maybe they'll come after the next question I
Yes.
have for Janardhan.
Okay. Yes. Go ahead.
So far, we've had a very cautionary kind of approach to this whole issue of AI, robotics, ethics, and so on. But Janardhan, job security is also about how to upskill people for new kinds of roles. And that's what the exciting part now is. How do you upskill? How do you reskill? How do you retrain the workforce in new kinds of jobs that AI and GenAI and robotics open up? So can you share with us some of the exciting opportunities you see that are emerging, and how can these be bundled with the ethical consideration of don't lay off people, but upskill them? If they can't upskill, you may have to let them go, but at least give them a chance. So what is there to upskill people about? Janard?
So, given that, I also teach, I see upskilling in three broad buckets, if you will. I mean, so to me, you might be one of those people who's like an end user of technology, right? So then there are a bunch of programs where you get sensitized to some of the new tools. I mean, at some organizations, it might be just like a simple training on, say, Copilot or other generative AI tools, depending on what shall I say, the work area that they come from. A lot of generative AI trainings. These are very short trainings, but they are trained to, become better users of technology, including, say, ChatGPT, right? So how do you leverage ChatGPT for your day-to-day purposes? How does it help you become more productive? That's one side. The other side is, for core techies, typically people from an engineering background who need to become better developers, because I think the overall AI engineering, right, has a paradigm shift from conventional IT engineering, because, as I said, in the IT world, everything was deterministic. The whole SDLC, I mean, to a large degree, was deterministic. But now, with the AI engineering, there are a lot of unanticipated outcomes. There could be adverse results which you don't want, right? And so, how do you manage? There is a paradigm shift that's happening, and so AI engineering is a burgeoning field, and so there are different training programs. It's interesting that Vijay also comes has this education portfolio under her. So I see that people can get onto these training programs coming from hyperscalers like the ones that Amazon offers, or Microsoft offers, or Google offers, and then there are different institutions giving you, which will make you tech savvy. The third area I would say is, you might be a leader. You'll need to know that how do you uh, put this technology to productive use, right? So how can you get your AI strategy right? How can you make sure that you avoid the pitfalls? And like both of them spoke, Raghav and Vijaya, that trust cannot be an afterthought, right? So how do you make sure that it's embedded right within the this one of the organization? And see, while we talk about data privacy, some of the funny things that I see as a practitioner is a lot of times, there's no data available for all the aspirations that the organization has in moving towards AI, right? Sometimes you say, okay, I have a great AI idea, but then that is when you realize, oh, we haven't really thought about what are the critical data that we need to capture. We possibly haven't even started capturing data. Okay, so that's the other side. There's a second side, is where possibly there's a lot of data lying in the organization and people have done nothing about it. I call it as dark data, right? That's another fun part. It's been lying there. Nobody knows how to use it. Or they have not even, they don't even realize that it has been there. But coming to the training part, it is, I think, as I said, these are the three broad segments that I see, and it is incumbent on everyone because it's just inevitable, right? Just like the way your mobile phone is inevitable and the apps that we're using is inevitable, it's going to be inevitable, and we need to train ourselves. But I think one area that we all need to train ourselves is, I maybe, one of the poll I would have loved to ask is, how many of us indulge in doom scrolling? Right. So I think you need to understand that these behemoths have their own vested interests in fine-tuning the algorithm to keep us engaged. Because the more we are engaged and the more we give away our discretionary time, then there is more marketing dollars flowing in, right? So how do we kind of get out of this? More importantly, how do we get the younger generation out of these addictions? Right. So that's a different kind of training possibly that is required because we all agree that attention span is coming down. I mean, in general, and I see in the classroom as well, right? So these are some places where I think collectively as a society, there's a different kind of training that possibly is required.
Thanks, Janardhan. I think you also are in the perfect storm where you're seeing how in the classrooms, in the educational setting, the next generation is struggling with all the exciting things about technology, but also being sucked into the algorithmic power kind of, unable to manage how to set space for themselves and so on and so forth. So now we have time for
One of
maybe
the
just
things,
one.
if I may chime in,
Yeah, jump in,
one of
jump
the
in.
things, if I may chime in, when I deal with Gen Z is, I always ask them to use the mobile phone. So I ask the question. I said, okay, Google answer and find out for me, right? So my class by design has mobile phones.
Wow, that's great. That's great. Yeah, yeah. Okay, good. I think we have time now just for one last common question for all the three panelists, and then we'll come to more audience Q&A unless the audience wants to jump in now. And we also have one last poll question towards the end.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
we have one last poll. I think that should connect
Yes.
to the audience question. Shubhransh, if you could release the last poll, please. And I honestly think that this is a very critical one. While there are a lot of guardrails and safety one can do at an org level, enterprise level, there are structures, systems, captive. I think, at a personal level, uh, what is it that we need to be doing differently? Recently, I was if you know that even somebody like Aishwarya Rai has gone to to almost take a legal thing for not really for impersonating and using of personal pictures and things like that. Uh, and I now don't remember which country, whether it was Norway. I think maybe Norway. They've finally sort of uh, you know uh, almost had a legislation to protect one's physical appearance. So, legislations like this, which is almost at a personal level, how do you really protect yourself? And I think what's coming out is people are deeply concerned. So it'll be good to sort of hear from the audience as well as, of course, the panelists. What can one do at an individual level? Because there's lots one can do at a organizational level with its funding, resources, collective action, access, but what do you do really at a personal level? Yeah.
While we wait for an audience response, maybe we can also ask the panelists to take a look at the question in the chat window. If somebody's asking, how do you see what kind of decision-making changes need to happen when AI is making even semi-professionals pick up skills very fast? So it's hard to differentiate now. I mean, there's all these articles about consulting companies will die because everyone can get whatever they want through chat GPT and stuff. So there's a big challenge now for top management in terms of strategic decision making. So the question is, how do you see the role of strategic decision making evolving as AI accelerates its capabilities? So any responses to that? Maybe Raghav, we can talk about how strategy is changing in your company based on what's happening over here in the AI world. Are decisions being made faster, more broad inputs, or how does it work?
We've always seen that AI can only augment, it really cannot replace. And question which the audience member has asked is quite valid. And this was something which many people, like Madan was saying, keep talking about it on LinkedIn also, right? Will the consultants be replaced? Will marketers be replaced? Will product managers be replaced? But I think there is still a very good space, enough space for experts to be in, for anyone who has a specialization, whether it is an industry specific specialization or if it's a functional specialization. AI is, it gives you a good starting point, it gives you good overarching frameworks, but when it comes down to very specific contextual questions, I don't think it can match the experience and the expertise of someone who's been, let's say, in an industry for many years. To answer that in Titan's context, so let's say there's a marketer who's been making brand campaigns for Tanish for 6 years. Now, suddenly AI cannot come in and cannot have an amateur marketer come and use AI and develop the same kind of campaigns, because there is a deep experience sitting there. There is a nuanced understanding of your target audience sitting there. There are a lot of other factors sitting there which is not really built in to the data which AI has. So I don't think it can ever replace. But having said that, things are definitely speeding up. It is making things more comprehensive and holistic. And it gives you a very good starting point as well.
Yeah, thanks, Raghav. In fact, what another incident just came to mind. I think Albania, also another country, now has a minister, an AI minister, who has come and made
Yes,
a
Yes.
speech and all
yes,
this stuff. So people are sitting up and saying,
absolutely.
"Wow, maybe it's very gimmicky right now, but it's very
Yeah,
interesting." But people taking it very
absolutely.
seriously now. Yeah. So,
Yes.
any comment from Vijaya or Janardhan on that question about strategy, decision making, and how AI is changing the role of decision making at a strategic level?
Can I go,
Yeah,
Vijay? If
please.
you're okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so because I know I come from the consulting world, and this question gets asked, and see, my problem here is this: there was a similar, there was one relevant article when people talk about using AI in medicine, and which the lead researchers concluded like this. So those people who are now prognosticating what is called medcalypse, like medpocalypse, right? Like apocalypse, either don't know what medicine truly is, like doctors, or don't know what AI truly is, right? And I always tell my students, see, firstly, today what has happened is we don't really understand the phenomenon of natural intelligence. There is not a single study that has quantified or cataloged all the distinct human faculties. Cognitive psychology is almost 100, 200 years old. We really don't understand this phenomenon. We're talking about artificial intelligence. Every form of intelligence has its vulnerability, right? Humans can do mistakes in their own way. They can be creative in their own ways. Machines can be productive in their own ways. They can go wrong in their own ways. We spoke about human in the loop. Combine them together, they definitely are going to be productive in their own ways. They will also fail in their own way. There is no foolproof system in the world. Okay. But that said, augmented intelligence trumps discrete intelligence, be it human or synthetic, right? And that's why I think that's the way forward for all of us. And to me, you will always, if you really want to make the best out of it, you need a deeper understanding of both what is gifted to you as natural intelligence, as well as what is gifted, what you have at your disposal as synthetic intelligence or AI. And you can exploit that by getting your first principles right. Get ethics first, get the first principles of data right, and then start using it. Possibly you will minimize the risk. There is no way you can say, I've built a foolproof system. That's foolish thinking to think that, you will not make mistakes. But I think the way forward is together and not individual, right? Combine the prowess of machine with human. And that has played out, be it in writing poetry or in chess. It's always augmented intelligence that trumps discrete intelligence.
Thanks, Janardhan. I also want to thank Shubhransh Punia for this very good question. Let me
Yeah.
turn to Vijaya for her responses to this question. Will we see more and more AWS decisions being automated, for example?
I want to keep this response quite simple in the interest of time, and I would say +1 to what Janardhan said and Raghav said. That gives the answer. I feel, basically, I see AI as a ally to humans rather than, as an enemy to humans. Or, it creates job loss and all. I think it is a space to wait and watch at this point of time, and all of us to be learn and be curious. And ignorance is a problem, but if we overcome that and learn the technology is just like a knife, right? A knife in the hands of a surgeon can save lives. The same knife in the hands of a criminal can take lives. So it depends on how you are using the technology, and it is human who uses the technology. So the human in the loop is extremely important.
Great, thanks. Thanks, Vijay. Pooja, over to you. I think we're almost out of
Yes,
time now. Maybe you want to
yes,
sum
we
up
are
and
almost like
yeah.
close to. So thank you so much. I think you know it is collective consciousness of how we use it within an organization and in our individual spaces. I think with the pace of change, to be very informed in terms of how do we adopt that change. Sometimes we can be overwhelmed with change. Sometimes we blindly adopt because it's peer pressure, even without knowing how to do it, and don't want to be, left out. But I think it's all about informed adoption, and to be able to do it in the right way so that, so that the tool does not take over you. And at the end of, I think we started it, we went very much into the technical aspects of it, and we are sort of closing it on a human note. And as Vijaya mentioned, it's the human using the technology and not vice versa. And we need to have the autonomy and control over the application, whether we use it professionally or personally, and make the best use of the power behind it rather than the the dark side of things. So thank you so much, and thank you also for the audience. I know these are tricky conversations. It's not an exact science. A lot of the answers are evolving, and we are just trying to provoke some conversations so that we can have the right sort of mindset when we look at using this technology. So thank you so much, Madan, for moderating this. Thank you so much, Vijaya, Janardhan, and Raghav, for sharing your perspectives and the context of the organizations that you're coming with. um, in November, we do have our entrepreneurship conclave where we are looking at expanding this conversation and really wanting to focus on the human side of this journey. At the end of the day, while there are products and services and there are outcomes, but the process, the human process behind it it needs to be focused on. And the conclave really is the our landmark event where we really focus on the human side of any of the applications that we have. And I look forward to having you all there in the conclave. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining in today.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah.